There are moments in life when a person quietly wonders why God works the way he does, how he chooses the people he chooses, and what he looks for in the ones he uses for his purposes. Many believers go through seasons where they question whether God sees them, whether their heart means anything, whether their ordinary life carries any spiritual significance. Yet one of the most beautiful patterns throughout Scripture is the way God lifts individuals who never thought they had anything remarkable to offer. His choices rarely align with human expectations. He does not search for perfection, status, or outward brilliance. Instead, he looks for something far more subtle, something hidden in the heart that others overlook. And when we take time to examine these patterns, it becomes clear that God chooses people who carry a certain posture within their spirit, even if they are unaware of it. This message explores 5 kinds of people God often chooses. Not the perfect ones, not the famous ones, but people whose hearts quietly carry qualities heaven values deeply. There are people who walk through life with a longing they themselves cannot fully explain. On the outside, they seem completely ordinary. Their routines look like everyone else's. They work, they help their family, they show love, they worship sincerely, and yet inside there is a quiet pull they cannot silence. It is a hunger that asks for more of God, not for reasons of spirituality or pride, but because their heart recognizes that life without closeness to Him feels incomplete. They may not tell anyone about this longing because it feels too tender to describe, but it follows them everywhere. While others are satisfied with the idea of God, they crave the presence of God. They do not want superficial faith or shallow routine. Something deep within them aches for a real connection that transforms and breathes life into every part of who they are. Scripture shows us that this hunger is not accidental. Hannah felt this when she cried out in the temple. David felt it when he compared his longing to dry land in need of water. People with this kind of inner thirst may see it as a weakness or an inconvenience, but God sees it as preparation. It is often the first sign that a person is being drawn into a deeper calling. Their desire for God becomes the soil where His purposes begin to grow. And even when they cannot express why they feel this way, heaven understands perfectly. There are people who carry burdens quietly, not because they are required to, but because their heart is wired with compassion that feels almost instinctive. They notice when something is off before anyone says a word. They sense pain hidden behind smiles, tension beneath conversations, spiritual heaviness in a room where others feel nothing. These individuals often wonder why they feel so deeply. They may even question whether they are too emotional or too sensitive. Yet the truth is that the weight they carry is not a flaw. It is evidence of their calling. Moses carried this weight long before he ever knew he was meant to deliver Israel. Nehemiah felt it before he could explain the pain of seeing broken walls. People like this hold families together. They pray silently when everyone else sleeps. They protect peace without being asked. They sit with others in their distress without needing recognition. They feel the spiritual temperature of their environment and often serve as quiet intercessors. God trusts to stand in gaps others cannot see. They may feel unseen, but heaven records every silent tear, every whispered prayer, every moment they chose compassion over convenience. These hearts reflect the tenderness of God more than they realize. Their burden-bearing is not a sign of weakness, but of spiritual maturity. There are also people who walk with a sensitivity to timing that cannot be taught through logic or discipline. They may not stand out in crowds. They may not move fast or slow based on others' expectations, yet they carry an inner rhythm that aligns with God in a way that often goes unnoticed. These people know instinctively when to wait, when to move, when to speak, and when silence is wiser than words. They do not operate from pressure or panic. They are not easily swayed by noise or urgency. Their decisions come from a place of peace rather than hurry. The sons of Issachar had this gift. Joseph also had it throughout every season of his life. People with this sense of timing may not recognize it as spiritual, but that is exactly what it is. They feel when a door is premature. They sense when something looks good, but lacks peace. They know when God is saying not yet and when He is saying now. This sensitivity protects them from rushed mistakes and leads them into moments where God has plans unfold smoothly. Others may accuse them of being slow or indecisive at times, yet their heart is tuned to something eternal. They may not be able to explain how they know, but when they follow this inner prompting, things fall into place with harmony that only God can orchestrate. This awareness is a quiet strength, and God often chooses these individuals for meaningful assignments because their spirit moves with His timing instead of resisting it. Then there are those whose faith appears simple on the surface, but holds a depth that storms cannot shake. They do not dazzle with eloquence or theological complexity. They do not need long explanations or detailed arguments to believe what God has shown them. Their strength lies in a trust that feels pure and steady. When God speaks, they respond. When life grows complicated, they return to what is true. They do not pretend to understand everything, but they understand enough to stand firm. Mary had this kind of heart when she responded to the angel's message with pure surrender. The blind man in the Gospels displayed it when he simply held on to the truth that he had been transformed. People with simple but unshakable faith often underestimate themselves. They think they lack depth, when in reality they possess the very kind of clarity God values most. Their presence calms others. Their words carry honesty rather than pride. Their actions reflect a faith lived out rather than spoken loudly. They are not easily confused. Not because life is easy, but because their trust in God has been tested and proven through hardship. This clarity becomes an anchor God uses to steady others who feel lost in chaos. Their faith may seem uncomplicated, but in a noisy world, such clarity becomes a light that helps others find direction without fear. And finally, there are people whose hearts are flexible in the hands of God, able to change direction when He shifts their path. These individuals hold their plans lightly, not because they lack ambition, but because they trust God more than they trust their own strategies. When God closes a door, they do not break. When He redirects, they adjust. When He changes their season unexpectedly, they learn to move with Him instead of resisting. Abraham walked with this kind of heart when God asked him to leave everything familiar. Paul lived with this kind of openness when God transformed his purpose entirely. People who carry redirectable hearts may feel uncertain at times. They may doubt whether they made the right decisions, especially when God reroutes them suddenly. But this willingness to be guided is a rare and powerful quality. Many cling tightly to their expectations, asking God to support their plans instead of asking Him to set the direction. But those who allow Him to shift their course become vessels He can lead with precision. They are teachable, moldable, and deeply available in ways others are not. Their lives may look unpredictable on the outside, but spiritually they are anchored because they trust the One who sees ahead. Their flexibility is not instability but maturity. It allows them to grow into roles they never imagined. It opens doors they never knew existed. It shapes them into people God can trust, with assignments that require surrender, courage, and faith that moves when He speaks. And this brings the message together beautifully. When we look at these 5 kinds of people, a truth rises quietly to the surface. God's choices are not based on human qualifications. He chooses hunger over talent, compassion over perfection, sensitivity over speed, simplicity over complexity, and willingness over control. He is drawn to hearts that lean toward Him. Even if that lean is small, even if it is quiet, even if it goes unnoticed by the world. The qualities He values most are the things many people overlook in themselves. You may see your longing as a flaw. You may see your quiet burden as heaviness. You may see your timing as odd. You may see your simple faith as ordinary. You may see your redirectable heart as uncertainty. But heaven sees these qualities differently. Heaven sees seeds that God plants with purpose. Heaven sees preparation. Heaven sees people ready to be used in ways they do not yet understand. If you recognized yourself in even one of these descriptions, then perhaps what you thought was ordinary has never been ordinary at all. Maybe it was God shaping you quietly, patiently, intentionally. Maybe what you carry is exactly the kind of heart He chooses again and again throughout Scripture. And maybe the reason you are hearing this now is because God has been seeing it in you far longer than you realized.